All right, so we're today down at City Hall talking to the Honorable Mayor Buddy Dyer about his time in Orlando and as well as what's coming to Orlando. Thanks so much for hanging out.
My pleasure. My pleasure.
So 20 years as mayor, that's an incredible accomplishment.
Yeah, it's hard to believe. I won election in a special election, so I was elected on a Tuesday and took office on a Wednesday. Usually, you get a little time in between.
Sure.
And I had been in City Hall exactly one time before I came in as mayor, so there was a lot of on-the-job training when I became mayor.
I could imagine. If you had to go back to 2003 and tell Buddy Dyer at that time what to expect or maybe give him some advice, what would you say?
I would say always be persistent. A lot of the things that Buddy from back then is going to encounter is going to take a lot of effort and a lot of time, and you need to know that there's a good path to get there, but you need to keep following that path.
Yeah, absolutely. And I looked at maybe your first 10 State of the City addresses, and one thing that...
Oh my gosh.
I know, yeah. I wanted to be prepared. But I can always see, I feel like a leader is what's important and on their mind at the time is what they talk about during those pieces. And one of the things that came up multiple times was a downtown renaissance. How do you feel maybe you've done or the city has done in the past 20 years of kind of helping downtown become the next great city?
So I campaigned on revitalizing downtown or having a downtown renaissance, and I immediately put together a team that created a downtown strategic plan. And it probably had, I would guess, something like 140 recommendations, 5 of which were cornerstones, like building a performing arts center, a new home for the Magic, a movie theater downtown, a grocery store downtown. But I think we've achieved about 130 of those, probably. The 4 I named off. The only one I can think of that we didn't do was minor league baseball, but we got Major League Soccer, so I would say we upgraded on that recommendation.
Absolutely. And one thing people mention a lot is like the whole sports team thing. If there was one additional sports team that you would hope to have, whether it's NFL, I know we got the Guardians now, XFL, any wishes or desires you wish we had here?
Well, we just got pickleball.
We did.
Now we've got it all.
I'm surprised at how people love pickleball. That's insane.
So I've just started playing myself.
Okay.
And we did 8 courts out at one of our community centers, and we'll probably add to that. But it was funny, I was in D.C. with the U.S. Conference of Mayors, and I chair the professional sports committee for the conference.
Wow.
And I was hosting a pickleball panel the day that it was announced that Orlando got a professional pickleball team.
And there's like celebrities investing in these. Like it's like the next thing people got to realize.
Yeah, who would have known?
Yeah, exactly. So getting to go to DC and see other cities and how cities are run and that sort of thing, what do you think makes like a great city?
So I tell all the other mayors that I'm the happiest mayor in America, and they don't believe me to begin with. And then I tout all the things that we've got going on in Orlando. And I'll preface that with there were no happy mayors for the couple of years during COVID, but I'm back to being the happiest mayor. And I think the most important thing in our community is the people, number one, but the sense of collaboration and partnership, because we could go down a list, a myriad of things that we've done, from Performing Arts Center to Amway Center, Sunrail, Creative Village, Lake Nona, and it's all because we've been able to work collaboratively together. And we kind of take that for granted in Orlando, that the business community works with the government, and the city government and the county government works together, because it isn't that way everywhere else in the country.
Yeah, I could absolutely see that. I feel like if being that like business and commerce are so important to a thriving city, better jobs, more jobs, all that kind of thing, what would you say to the business community if they're thinking about moving to Orlando or maybe just bringing more jobs here?
I would say this is a great place to either start a business, grow a business, or move a business. We have so much talent. If you think about the 3 universities that were within about an hour and a half between UCF, University of Florida, and USF, not including all the other universities, that's 500,000 students. And the people that are the students, that alumni that UCF are turning out, can do every high-tech job that you can possibly think of. So we have really increased the number of high-tech jobs here. Everybody thinks that about tourism and tourism jobs, but we have as many high-tech jobs as we do, quote, tourism jobs.
That's something we gotta grab as a clip, because that's a huge one. I feel like if people are moving here, many times they're like, well, at least I can work from home. I don't have to worry about getting a job in Orlando. But that's something that they don't realize is how many high-paying jobs. I did some research that at UCF that something like 29% of the graduates now stay here and work either in the high-tech jobs in Orlando or over on the coast, which is a huge deal.
Absolutely, and we just did State of the Downtown a couple months ago, and one of the facts that we quoted was that particular day there were over 4,000 open tech jobs in Orlando.
So speaking of that, so you announced the Meta Center here, right? And there's 2,500 jobs that are available and are coming. Talk us a little bit about that for people that aren't maybe familiar with the Meta Center.
So the Metaverse is something that I can exactly describe, but it has components of just about everything you can think of in the tech world, from automated vehicles to just anything you can think of in that line. And we have most of those components, and we have the talent that are working in that. So we concluded that we're kind of the center of that whole growth industry in the meta centers, or meta center of the Metaverse.
I like it, yeah. So I think because you've got the AR, you've got simulation, you've got defense. There's so many jobs here that people wouldn't realize.
And what a lot of people don't realize is we have the largest cluster of modeling simulation technology in the country, based in our research park out by UCF. And then Creative Village is another aspect of
huge.
that.
I saw Research Park is 1,000 acres. You drive through there. We actually went through and did a quick video because we're like surprised at all these little industrial pieces you would have never known were there unless you go find them. And again, I think that's like an untold part of our story. So next 10 to 20 years, right? So you've got 20 years in the past, now you're looking 10, 20 years in the future. Where would you hope Orlando ends up?
So building on what we have done, when we do economic development, sometimes people criticize and say, you're offering incentives for this type of company to move here and you're picking winners and losers. And it's like, yeah, we are, because we know what type of industry we want here. We're not mining phosphate anymore in Orlando, and we're not going to be mining coal. So we're not going to incentivize coal miner jobs. We're going to incentivize high tech type of jobs. So continuing in that those areas. But I think one of the things I really hope happens, not in 10 years, but in a couple, is that we grow our housing stock, because we have probably about 1,500 people move to Central Florida, not necessarily to Orlando, but Central Florida every single week. So think about how that impacts our transportation system, but certainly our housing stock. So that's probably the biggest thing that we have needs in.
Yeah, I think housing inventory, whether it's apartments, affordable housing in general, that's like the number one thing on our house.
Every level.
Yeah, at every
not
level.
Just affordable,
exactly.
But going on
all the way up. 100% agree. So let's maybe talk about that last question for you is, if someone's thinking about moving to Orlando, what's maybe some advice you'd give them if they're considering it to make it home?
So come and understand what the real Orlando is, our unbelievably real thing. But so many people travel here, and you can come into the airport and go to Disney, go to Universal, go to iDrive, and never see the real Orlando.
That's
so
right.
There's some benefit to that in some ways, because not all the tourists are in our downtown, but we want to have some downtown. But it's a remarkable place to live. People care about each other. It truly is one of the places where love wins out. And you saw it after Pulse. You've seen it after other natural tragedies like hurricanes. It's just a good place to live and raise a family.
One thing I realized is that there's not a lot of people from Orlando, and so the cool thing about
I
know exactly, that's so great. What's wild about that though is everybody's in that same mindset of finding community, helping out. It's a very unique place to be in that.
So my wife is from Texas, so we adopted one of the slogans that Texans always use, which is, I wasn't born here, but I got here as soon as I could.
That's right.
So that's a good thing for new Orlandoans.
I love that. Mayor, thanks so much for your time.
My pleasure. That went quick.